Welcome.
How's it going, Zach?
Fantastic. Great to have you. And you are actually hosting me here at your facility.
That's right.
My name's Zachary Divabis. I'm a criminal defense attorney here in Phoenix, Arizona. We handle cases throughout Phoenix. Nico, tell us your name, introduce yourself, and tell us what company you represent.
Absolutely. So my name's Nico Chavez. I am with Cornerstone Healing Center, specifically Cornerstone DUI Services, and I am a business development specialist for Cornerstone DUI Services.
Fantastic. We're so excited for this because we've talked before. The criminal world works super well with, substance abuse, counseling. They go hand in hand. The courts require it. Judges require it. What is this, though? What is the DUI services side of things?
So a couple of things happen in Arizona when you get a DUI, right? I am not an attorney. Zach here is. But the two important factors are your license is probably going to be suspended, and then the court system is going to require you to do some stuff too. Cornerstone DUI Services specifically handles the alcohol and drug screening and then the classes that you'll complete for the court.
Got it. So it's kind of just like what you said, the court's going to require it. NVD comes in. Me as a lawyer, I'm going to explain a little bit more about that and kind of explain maybe some tips and tricks for this, ways to save a little money, ways to not get in more trouble. And that's fantastic to know in here because with Cornerstone's not the only company who does this, right? There are a ton of companies these days, especially here in Arizona, that do it.
Right.
What's a little bit, special about Cornerstone?
So I think, I have personal experience in this industry for almost 2 years now. And one of the biggest things I like about Cornerstone is that we are going to be the cheapest provider in the Valley to have these services completed, right? I think that, if I acquire a DUI, the one thing that I for sure understand is that if I'm going to need an attorney and I'm going to need to do these classes and this counseling, it's going to cost me money, right? And so what avenues can I take to ensure that I don't spend as much as I would with a different company or something like that? So the biggest thing is not only are our prices already cheaper than any other provider in the Valley, but even if you were to find online a different provider that offers it cheaper, we would beat their price by 10%, match it and beat it. And then aside from that, the other part is that everything that we do is online. So like I've stated in previous videos and stuff before, right? When I get a DUI, my life doesn't just stop, right? Everything doesn't just go on pause so I can handle all of these things that I have to do. The MVD is going to ask me to do the screening, possibly SR22 insurance, ignition interlock device. I'm going to need the screening as well for the court to make the determination.
They're going to throw the book at you.
Yeah, there's just all of these things hit me at once. And so the other part of it that I guess I'm trying to address here is the fact that it's online makes it that you can fit it into your schedule, whether it's the screening, the classes. You don't have to make your schedule work around doing the classes and the screening with us because, it's tough, right? It's definitely tough.
Absolutely. Super important. You highlighted really two of the most important things that I think a lot of people care about. I know a lot of our clients care about. It's why people hire us.
Right.
Is the money factor and the convenience factor. It's huge these days. Like you just said, Nico, your life doesn't stop just because you made a 5-minute mistake. These cases drag out sometimes for months and months. Mm-hmm. And so it's like you want to get this done and over with. And this step here, you don't want to be like, gosh, I'm getting hit with another bill. But at least if you are, you're going to know it's one of the cheapest providers out there. They're going to be able to beat any other providers. It's fantastic to know that because on Google, you don't really know that. There's
right.
Too many companies out here. There's so many things that you don't really know. Is this a company that I need? And then on top of that, I know a ton of people hire our firm because of the convenience of virtual, right? At our firm, we work with a lot of our clients via text message, put them in a group chat so that way they can talk to us, the attorneys, our paralegals, legal assistants, ask questions without ever having to come to our offices. You guys hire us over the phone. We give you detailed videos breaking down your case so that way you know what's going to happen. And then basically you can show up to court already knowing what's going to happen, get in and out, and not have to spend all day at court. Huge thing. And your company offers virtual services.
Correct. Yeah. So the screening, the alcohol and drug screening, right? It is going to be a series of questions in any circumstance, whether you do it with us or a different provider, right? The screening is a series of questions about substance abuse history, if you've ever had any past charges, specifically how high your blood alcohol content was at the time of your arrest when you actually got the DUI the day of, right? But we do it virtually on Zoom, and we've also started doing it, I believe, on Google Meets. We just hired a new screener, and we, due to the flow of clients coming in and stuff, we want to be able to give you guys screenings either the day of or the next day, right? We understand like sometimes it's of urgent importance. You need to get your license back. You need to get back to work. You need to be able to drive, stuff like that. So it'll either be on Zoom, and it's Google Meets if I'm not mistaken, or Microsoft Teams. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. It's a new thing for us. But it takes about 15 to 20 minutes. We ask you these questions that any other company is going to ask you. And then once we finish it, that's when we would move on to finding out how many class hours you would need to do. So the classes themselves are going to be self-paced on your own as well online. But the only virtual video call that you're going to do is going to be for the screening.
Love it. Love it. So everything's virtual. You can do the screening, which we're going to get into that. And then there's the screening, and then there's the actual counseling. This is definitely virtual by Zoom, Teams, whatever it is. And then this one is also online, if I'm understanding correctly. And this is a self-paced program, basically like taking an online class to get this done, right?
Right.
Certificate at the end once you complete it. No teacher you have to check in with.
Right.
Is there homework assignments?
I mean, it's basically, a lot of videos. There are some PDF modules that you'll have to fill out and upload, but it's very self-explanatory. And we have a great technical support staff where even if you did encounter some sort of issue where you're having trouble with the website, navigating the classes, we definitely would help you through that and walk you through it, right?
Wow, this is amazing. And I'm saying this from personal experience myself. We'll get into this soon here. I've gone through this kind of counseling at least 2 times and I think 3 times in my life, and none of it was virtual. And I mean, not that we encourage, and we definitely don't encourage in any way for anybody to drink and drive. And we know the consequences of it are very difficult, especially, not just for you, but for other victims. So we're not encouraging that. And the thing about this, though, is DUIs are hard. They're stressful. There's a ton of punishments with it. It's very difficult for people to know, what do I need to do? When do I do this? And then the judge is looking at me and I could go to get more jail. And so the fact that one of these things, if not all of them, are now switching to virtual, now being more convenient, is really good for you. It's going to set you up for success more, which is really what our firm wants. Our firm, Future First, is named Future First for a reason. We want to protect your future. We want to make things convenient for you. We want you as a first-time offender to learn your lesson the first time and not to get in more trouble. And again, I've been through the system before. I've been through it a few times, and it's not fun. It's not easy. And the fact that, things like this weren't available 10 plus years ago when I got my DUI, I mean, it's huge. I really think that, obviously with technology, the things that are getting better, things do really help out people, right? Awesome. Love to hear that. You did mention in the screening, there's a few questions that get asked. What are some of those questions?
So I mean, prior to being in business development, maybe you've seen some of my past videos, but I used to be actually a screener myself. It's called the screening administrator. And so I did screenings for almost a year here with Cornerstone before, I guess you could call it a promotion or a lateral switch into business development to help, make more awareness about what we do and how we can help you and stuff like that. And so in my experience doing screenings with clients for quite some time, the main questions that are going to be the biggest points on whether you score more or not is going to be your blood alcohol content is probably the biggest one. That specifically is like in the state of Arizona, it goes above 0.8 is like a misdemeanor DUI, if I'm not mistaken, correct, right? And then 0.15 or higher is going to start to be extreme, whether it's extreme, super extreme. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't increase based on extreme or super extreme. But if it was extreme, then that would bump up your hours. So that's one of the main points of one of the questions that will be asked in the screening. The other point is going to be if you've ever had any past charges, right? Specifically that were alcohol or drugs. Even if it wasn't a DUI, even if, let's say, I was caught with a possession charge, 2 years ago, or for example, sales, anything, right? I've encountered all sorts of stuff with clients. The court views that as a strike against the state does specifically, right? Cornerstone doesn't make up these questions.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't just kind of decide, hey, you know what, based on what Cornerstone thinks, this is the amount of hours of class you're going to have to do, right? And a lot of times clients think that, and I have to explain to them that it's kind of a process, right? Companies such as ourselves, need to be licensed with what's called the Arizona Department of Health Services, right? And AZDHS makes up guidelines on how screenings need to be conducted and what questions need to be asked. And based on the client's answers to those questions, we have to, by law, to keep our license, score you a specific way, right?
Got it.
Now, there are some other key points in there, like substance abuse history, if you've ever, had an increase in your tolerance, where it's, a little bit more so up to the discretion of the screener. If they don't see any past charges and it was an extreme DUI, and, there's a couple other notes here and there, maybe like 10 years ago, you say that you used to smoke weed or marijuana, that's not going to count as a strike against you. So it kind of varies. But the one things that we can't change that are the most important questions is going to be the BAC and the past charges.
All right. Love to hear it. So again, the question's fairly simple. It's virtual. And this is where I like talking about some of these tricks here. Some of these ways to maybe save you some time, maybe save you some more money, save you some of these counseling classes. There's basically a set of questions that they're going to ask you virtually, and they're going to say things like, hey, what are you here for today? Oh, I got a DUI. Oh, okay, what's the case number? They're going to ask for that. When did this happen? How much were you drinking? Do you know what your BAC level was? Do you have any prior offenses? Assaults, domestic violence, drug possession, those things. And, they're going to say, does alcohol run in your family? Have you ever lost a job because of this? How does your family feel about this? Those are some things that they might dig into a little bit. And here's the key, right, is you're going to, no matter what, get out of how much alcohol was in your system at your DUI. You can't get out of that, okay? Likewise, it's very easy to look up a criminal history and see, hey, there are some other alcohol-related charges. But the key here is maybe not to disclose anything more than what they ask. You might not be like, well, yeah, every Thursday I really drink a lot, but on, Wednesdays I drink a little bit. And, you don't want to be like, yeah, and, it's bunko night, so then we go way off the roof. You don't want to, purposely divulge more than what you're being asked. And that's important because, as Nico said, the screener does have discretion to say, wow, this person might really have a serious substance abuse issue. And even if your DUI was on the lower end of things, they might look at that and go, wow, thankfully this was on the lower end, but you just voluntarily told me that you drink 10 beers a night. And, understand that while even 3 beers in one night might not be a lot for you, it very well could be in other circumstances. That, to these therapists, might be an indication that this might not be a problem yet for you, but this could. And we know that as attorneys. We see this all the time. We see great people who are super productive. They're well-to-do in society. They have great careers, jobs. They're in education, getting higher-level degrees. And they make 5-minute mistakes. And the 5-minute mistake is not because they're a bad person. It's not because they woke up that day saying, hey, well, I want to go and commit a crime kind of thing. What it really is sometimes is a buildup of different factors. It's stress, it's work, it's school, it's, the personal relationships, their family relationships. And that's what sometimes then triggers drinking. And that's what triggers drug use. And that's where we say, oh, well, I only drink a lot because I was just in an argument with my spouse. That's going to usually sometimes be something that triggers this might, be something we should explore and look into.
Yeah.
So little tip there.
Yeah.
Maybe don't over disclose. Okay. Thank you for that. Tell me, how many different types of counseling classes, hours are there? So this is something that we get asked as lawyers. We're representing a client and the client says, well, hey, I know I have to do the screening. I know I have to do the counseling. How many hours is that? How much money is it? What does this look like? So explain a little bit of the range that is here, that anybody could get. And let's see, what's the most common person likely also going to get?
Yeah, for sure. So I guess let me start off by saying that, Cornerstone, we're going to score you based on AZDHS guidelines, kind of how I said before, right? Arizona Department of Health Services. The way that we do it is so that we are following every rule the state requires, because we don't want to put you as a client in a circumstance where, I've heard this from clients before. Well, I did these classes with this place, but they closed. You know what I mean? And I can't get a hold of them. And do those classes still count? And they don't. And it's super unfortunate. And they already paid $400-$500 for a 16-hour or a 36-hour class, whatever it was that they needed. And then they got to redo the screening with us and stuff. So if there's one thing I can ensure is that we're not going anywhere anytime soon, and we definitely follow the rules that the state and the courts require, right? That being said, the way that the categories go for DUI counseling, I should say, it's going to be the minimum requirement by the state, by AZDHS. There is no circumstance where you'll do a screening and get 0 hours, right? And these classes are court specific. So
very important. I want to repeat that.
yeah,
If you have to do this, you're never going to get 0 hours. You're never going to show up and they're going to be like, oh my God, you are a perfect person.
right.
Just why don't you walk on out of here? I'm going to write you a good review.
Right.
Never going to happen.
And I can't stress enough how that is not our decision as Cornerstone, right? That is the state's decision on the guidelines we must follow to keep our licensure to conduct these screenings and provide these classes, right? So like I was saying, the minimum required hours is 16 hours, and that is considered what the state calls an education class. If you score 16 hours, it's usually because your BAC was not extreme and you've never had any past charges, right? Those two important questions I was stating before. And it's kind of just a slap on the wrist, right? You're still going to pay your court fines and stuff like that. Depending on how the case goes, they may have to do a couple days in jail, who knows? But the 16 hours of education is the minimum. And then it goes a little bit higher once you start getting into the extreme DUI territory. Mm-hmm. So for example, if this was your first DUI ever and you've never had any past charges, but the BAC was extreme, the state says that there's no circumstance that you should get anything less than 36 hours. So that would be like the second level up, right? And then after that, we get into 56 hours, which would be basically like, the BAC was extreme and you've had a past charge that was alcohol or drug related. And that is what's considered, the 16 hours is always considered education. It's always education. And then if you get 36 hours or 56 hours, aside from that 16, we add on either 20 or 40 hours respectively to each one, which the state considers treatment, right? Which online treatment is okay as long as it's some form of substance abuse or alcohol treatment. So it's the 16 hours of education in those circumstances plus either the 20 or 40 hours of treatment. And so those are the three classes that we provide online. It's going to be 16, which is like minimum, 36, which is like extreme, mid, it's your first time. 56 is like, okay, this has happened before. You got another extreme DUI and you're going to have to do 56. Now, we do score even higher than that, and that's when it's like really bad, right? Just full transparent, like the client's being super honest. They've had 3 DUIs. This fourth one's extreme. Then we start getting into the category of 72 hours and even 108 being the highest. Cornerstone doesn't actually offer the 72 or the 108 online. At that point, kind of like we were talking about before, there's a serious underlying issue, and we, Cornerstone Healing Center, which is the main part of Cornerstone DUI services, is a substance abuse treatment facility. So at that point, we would probably recommend that you come in for some sort of in-person IOP, which stands for intensive outpatient, in like a group setting, because, there's something more than just you needing to do some online classes at that point. And I think the stance with the company and with, my supervisors and stuff is like, we wouldn't really feel right giving you that many hours of class online because sure, we would satisfy the courts, but there's something else that's a lot more serious going on here with you. So we would recommend that you, even if it's not with us, do some form of treatment or IOP at that point.
Yeah.
But that's
or because there's probably an addiction issue is really what's happening here, especially if you maybe don't recognize it. That's where there are professional counselors to say, hey, wait a second. We took a peek under the hood here and there's a lot of things not working right. And to save your life and to save other people's lives, this issue probably does need to be addressed. And sure, court ordered, they come in and you are going to likely be like, this is so annoying. This wasn't my fault. And, that other stuff was really old.
right.
Your hands are going to be tied here. And this is why, we as lawyers, we really stress, when you get in trouble the first time, especially your first DUI, it's a one and done. You take that seriously. You never get another DUI again. You Uber, you Lyft, everywhere you go from then. So just because Arizona has a 7-year rule where they're like, okay, technically it doesn't count as a second DUI, It does, and so don't think, oh, I got one DUI 10 years ago, and so now I'm good to get a second one. It doesn't work like that in reality. And of course, in today's day and age with technology, the prosecutors, the judge, we're going to find that old DUI, and that prosecutor, unfortunately, and that judge, they're going to look at you and be like, you should have learned your lesson. And you're going to look at me, the defense attorney, and granted, we're going to fight on your behalf to say, hey, look, that was 10 years ago. But at the bottom line is you did kind of know better and you committed the same offense again. And so, that's the collateral consequences. And this is where you see this down the road is, man, it feels like everybody's bullying me. I got the second DUI. My first one was really old, and everyone just tacks more on you and tacks more on you and tacks more on you. And it does, it happens.
Yeah.
But I want to confirm, what is the most common amount of hours you are most likely going to get?
Right. And I was going to touch on that too. So don't fear, right? Obviously, you're hearing all this stuff and you're like, holy smokes, if I score a bunch of hours, I don't want to do IOP or have to go in person somewhere. I don't feel like I have a problem, right? Like I was saying, I did screenings for almost a year and I did like well over 1,000, right? Screenings easily in 2023. And I'd say out of all of those clients, maybe 10 to 15 scored in that really high category. The most common...
That's like not even 1%.
Yeah.
It's not even 1%.
So it's very rare. So if you find yourself in a circumstance where it's your first DUI, or maybe it's your second, you're going to typically score anywhere from 16 to 36 hours, right? That's the most common. It's like first-time offender, unless the BAC was extreme, you're just going to get that 16-hour education. Second-time offender, or if the BAC is extreme, it's going to be anywhere from 36 to 56. But the 16 and 36 hours is going to be your most common classes that we see, that I've seen from my experience.
Got it. Okay, good to know. Super common. You're always going to be on the lower end, unless obviously there is something extreme. Again, there's probably other indicators. There's probably no talking your way out of that at that point.
Right.
So do understand, we do take this seriously. We want you to take this seriously, and we're going to get to, again, my story here of how I ended up doing this class kind of a couple times, and I will say I didn't take it seriously, and that's the honest truth of it. Again, just like Nico said, is you go in, you do the class, you have to sign up for it, and you're like, yeah, I don't really have a problem, and if anything, being here at the class makes me want to drink more. Like that's the problem. The way that you're thinking about it is not that was actually really good information, and sure, this might not all apply to me, but I can see how these are good indicators, and I can see how I can recognize issues in the future, and I can see how maybe others around me might not be a good influence and how they might have an issue too.
Right.
It's not your job to fix other people. It's your job to fix yourself. And again, that's what we help. Make sure that you know exactly what you need to do, get it done, and get out of the court system and never deal with this again.
Right.
All right. Love to hear it. I do want to, before we get to some of our stories, tell you a little bit more about the court process here.
There we go.
So if you haven't heard, if you get a DUI, there is a world of trouble you're going to be in. And that is just the simple reality of it. Okay. Arizona takes DUI so seriously, it is not funny, right? You could go up north to California, and California, I've heard, takes it a little easier on you. But we're not in California. Okay. We're here in Arizona. So even if it is your first time DUI, you're going to be looking at some serious consequences. You're going to be looking at least a day of jail. You're going to be looking at the screening, the counseling, classes that you have to complete, looking at thousands of dollars worth of fines. You're looking at traffic survival school. You're looking at SR22 insurance, possible house arrest. Most importantly, everyone's worried about their license suspension. If I can't drive, I'm going to lose my job. If I can't drive, I am going to lose my family. I'm going to lose custody. I won't be able to take my kids to school. It is huge. Losing your driver's license, while the rest of the punishments are very serious, is usually what most people care about. And guess what? These screenings, these counselings usually tie into your driver's license, and here's how. When you get a license, you basically then give Arizona permission, whether it's in Arizona or not, you give them permission to say, hey, if you get a DUI or arrested for suspicion of DUI, we have the right to basically take away your privilege to drive.
Right.
And then they hold it hostage and they say, we're not going to give this back to you unless you get the screening completed. Super important, because we could finish a whole DUI case and do everything, but if you never do the screening, you're not going to get your license back.
Right.
And that's huge. That's why this is so important. This is also why it's so important that you hire our law firm as early as you can, because there are some ways around doing some things. There's not ever in the law 100%, this, 100% of that. But it is so important that you don't get all of this work done and then still find out you can't drive.
Right.
And there are ways to get this screening done sooner rather than later and save some money there. There are ways that you can get the screening and the counseling done that actually helps your DUI case in the eyes of the prosecutor and in the eyes of the judge to say, wow, we're being proactive about this. But at the same time, there are times where you might not actually have to do the counseling side of it. You might still have to do the screening, but you might not have to do the counseling, which could save you hundreds of dollars over there. So this is why it's so important to hire a lawyer at our firm as soon as possible, so that way you don't get stuck paying for different things, and not just the screening, but we're talking about interlock devices, we're talking about traffic schools, we're talking about the fines and fees to the court. It's huge. What we estimate that our value that we as lawyers and at our law firm bring, that whatever we're going to charge you, we're going to be able to equally save you that much money, if not more, in the outcome of your case. Super important here. And especially if you're trying to do this yourself and you're like, oh yeah, I'm not going to worry about getting some letter in the mail from MVD, just know they're still going to take your license away. How often do you hear that people say, I need my license back and that's the only reason I'm here?
Oh, all the time. I'd say that is our biggest call or, online click that we get from a form fill from a client. And this is all talking from experience, right? This isn't just me kind of just giving you an idea based on my opinion. These are facts, factual from me being a screener for such a long time. And I would even answer the phone in between screenings and, sign clients up for the screening, get them set up for their appointment, for the video call that I've talked about before. And the biggest thing that I'd always hear is I need to get my license back, right? I need my license back. How do I go about getting my license back? I got this letter in the mail from the MVD saying I need to do it. Alcohol screening with a licensed counselor is how it reads on there. And that is like the utmost importance. And there's even times where I'll ask the client, like, yeah, we can definitely help you out. Obviously, we'll get this done for you either tomorrow, the next, whatever the soonest appointment time is. And then I ask them, right, do you have any sort of court case? Do you have any idea what's going on with the court? And they'll tell me, no, I don't. I mean, right? So it's like, that's not even important. Just get me my license back. And I'm just like, well, just so that you know, if you're charged, they're going to want to see this screening too, because it's going to determine how many hours of class you're going to need to take. So I would say for sure the license is important, but don't neglect the court side. There's times where you're not going to have heard from the court yet. They haven't officially charged yet, but it could pop up on you. And I understand the license is super important, but that stuff is important too, right?
Absolutely. Love it. And this is a very real concern, because what commonly happens here in Arizona is you're out drinking, you're driving, marijuana violations included, drug violations with, driving under the influence. The police officer pulls you over. The police officer then takes you to the station or the DUI van and draws your blood. Yes, do give your blood. It's the only thing you have to give. You should not do any of the standing and walk tests. Don't do any eye tests. You don't have to do any of that. Don't blow into the little handheld breathalyzer. You don't have to do that. Let them take you to the station. Let them draw your blood. And guess what? In Arizona, they might not give you any paperwork. It is so common these days, ever since COVID, that the police are basically doing a catch and release. They're catching you, they're taking you to the station, getting your blood, and then releasing you without any information.
Right.
And then what happens is these police officers are sneaky. At some point in the future, whether this is days, weeks, months, they filed a little piece of paper over to the MVD. MVD then says, hey, we have a DUI suspicion license suspension that's coming into play here. And then you lose your license and you're like, how do I get this back? This is the key. You have to get a screening done. You usually have to pay also $50. There's some online stuff that it'll tell you about that. But that's the tricky part here. And again, that's what hiring us as early as possible is meant for. And we do huge discounts when you hire us, because you got arrested and they didn't give you any paperwork. We say, all right, we know the tricks that are about to happen here. We save you from getting a warrant. We save you sometimes from even losing your license. We can prolong this process a little bit in some situations. Huge lifesaver. Don't think, I got let go, I'm lucky, they're just going to drop it. Even if that officer says, hey, just keep an eye out in the mail. Well, get this. Mail's not that reliable.
Right.
They're mailing out millions of these documents every week, and you don't know how many calls I've gotten. Literally every day almost, we get a call from somebody who says, hey, I need to hire your firm because I just found out I have a warrant out for my arrest.
Right.
And we're like, well, okay, what happened? And they're like, I don't know. And I'm like, okay, well, within the last year, have you been arrested and released for any reason? Well, yeah, 6 months ago, I got pulled over for a DUI. And I'm like, okay, did they give you any paperwork? No, they didn't. And I'm like, that's the key word. Police are tricky these days. They want you to basically fail. They want you to think it all just went away. And then they hit you with the warrant. They hit you with the license suspension. You might get in trouble with something else. And now it looks like you have 2 cases. It looks like you were avoiding the law. You were on the run. All because you didn't get something in the mail, which really isn't your fault. This book says it is your fault. So again, you have to hire us to make sure you know what you're doing. Even if you know you did it, even if you're like, yeah, I know I got a DUI, I know I'm busted on this. It is so important that you don't suffer the consequences of things you shouldn't.
Right.
And getting in more trouble when you really weren't doing anything else wrong. Sure, we get it. You made a 5-minute mistake. You did something you've never been in trouble for. Don't make the mistake of not hiring our firm and then getting yourself into more trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Again, super important. Even if you do get paperwork, even if the officer says, yeah, here's all your paperwork, there are deadlines where if you don't hit this within 30 days, you're going to lose your license no matter what. And there's nothing a lawyer can do to come back and undo that. Okay. And we're going to give you advice on, okay, do this part of the screening. We're going to give you a referral. We're going to tell you to get this part started, hold off on this part. Send us the certificate when you're done. We handle all of this behind the scenes so that way you can continue living. That way you can continue going to work. That way you can continue being a little more stress-free when you're hanging out with your family, your spouse, your loved ones, and not have to sit here going, wow, I can't sleep at night because I've got to worry about, did this paper get filed? Do I get my license suspended today? Do I go to jail tomorrow? All of that we help take care of for you. Super important. Again, the ease of online services these days, getting you that information as fast as possible.
Oh, yeah.
It's fantastic. Okay. As promised, I said I would get over to the stories. Okay. I will ask, though. You've talked to thousands of people for this.
Yes.
You're definitely more of the expert, I'm sure, in that regard, whereas I'm the expert of I've been in the shoes and in these chairs physically doing this.
Right.
What success stories have you heard? What failure stories, if you've heard any? What do you commonly see? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, for sure. So I'd say in my experience doing screenings, the biggest success stories from clients where they have a great experience with us is when they are being super proactive, right? When you know that you have to do this, you're in full acceptance. I'm not going to be able to skirt this. The court gives you a time frame on when you need to have these classes done by. We don't give a time frame unless the court is specifically asking us because, they're online, they're self-paced, they're super convenient. It is our belief that, you should be able to get these done when you need to, when you want to, right? Mm-hmm. If the court were to tell us specifically we need a time frame, then usually we'd give them a time frame of like the 16 hours is like 30 days, 60 days, and then 90 days in that order. But that's super rare. I mean, that's only if the court is like, usually you've been a bad apple if they're asking us how long it takes to get your classes done, right? For the most part, they give you a decent chunk of time to get these done, right? And so our biggest success stories and when clients have a great experience is when they actually get them done soon, right? You have the convenience to get them done whenever you want. They sign up for the 16 hours of education. And I mean, it was not uncommon for me to see clients have it done within 3 days or 4 days.
Wow, 3 or 4 days to get this done. Quick and simple.
Yeah, I mean, back to back to back, they just got it done. And then we send the submission to the court immediately, right? As soon as we see your completion come in, we have different people on our staff that are constantly watching our notifications, right? It lets us know the second you finish, we make up the report, we send you a copy as a client, and then the court is going to get it too, right? And so whenever a client, does all this stuff in that manner, I mean, their experience is great, high success stories, highly recommend us. They love our screeners because, it's not just, we're not just doing this like black and white thing. Like, we get it. It sucks, right? None of this stuff is fun. I know I've never personally experienced it on the side of having a DUI, but I understand it's frustrating. And, we just want to make the process for you guys as the clients as smooth as possible. And where we, assure you that everything's done and taken care of, and we report it to the court, you're good, right? Those are the highest success stories. The ones that we have issues with, and they kind of, will get mad at us, is like, they sign up for the classes, the court gives them a whole year to finish these classes.
Wow.
And they only scored 16 hours and they just needed the education. And we sign them up, and it comes a year later that they're calling us and they're like, I need to get these classes. Can you submit the court like at least a report of how many hours I've done? And I look online and I look at their gradebook progress, right? And it turns out that in the past year, they've done 2 hours of their online self-paced class, right? And so we can for sure show the court that. We'll send them a report that you only did that. But what does that look like to the court, right? You had a whole year to just do 16 hours of class, and here you are at the last second, stress. And I get it. Life comes up. Maybe you forgot about it. But those are the type of circumstances where we'll see, the lesser success rate. I mean, and they'll still get it done, and maybe, you can ask the court for an extension and stuff. But I guess I say all of this to say that being proactive about getting this stuff done is in your favor always, not only before you get sentenced, but even after, everything's said and done. Zach tells you, get a screening with us, go ahead and do the classes, sign up for them and get them done. Just get them done as quickly as possible so that you can put this behind you and just rest easy knowing that everything's taken care of, and you're not going to have the court, hounded on you a year later, or, worst case scenario, you forget about that you signed up for these classes, you neglect them, and then you have a warrant out for your arrest because the court files you as non-compliant, right?
Yep. It's exactly what happens. Love the success stories here. The way to be successful, sign up for the classes, pay the classes, get them done and over with, and automatically it happens that it's over.
Right.
Like, that's huge. And then the people who fail, the people who really hate this, that struggle with it the most, seems like maybe are the procrastinators. And, a lot of us are procrastinators in different ways, but this is not the time.
Right.
This is the time where, again, at our firm, we give you a checklist. We say, go down this list and do each and every one of these 13 different things that come up with DUIs. And this is at the top of the list. I think this is list number 2 or 3. Get this done because it's so important. Get this done and over with. And don't wait till the end. Don't wait till your deadline. The judges don't like it. We as your attorneys don't like it. The prosecutors are allowed to send you to jail for at least a week extra just because you didn't get this done. Okay. And again, if you've experienced a DUI, you would know that part of the benefit of you getting maybe 1 day of jail instead of 10 days of jail is that you promised you would complete this class.
Right.
And that's why those 9 days go away. But if you don't complete this class by the deadline and you've got a million excuses to the judge says, great, welcome to jail for an extra 9 days. Right. And if you think you didn't have the money to pay for these classes, well, guess what? You're going to end up paying for your jail stay, which is going to be 10 times more expensive than these classes. And then the judge is going to make you do the classes again and start over. So that's how you fail this. That's a horror story. And that is not what you want to be in the place with. And again, please don't make that happen. Things are so convenient, so easy these days to get it done. Almost, to the sense you might forget about it, but that's not a good excuse.
Right.
Now, let me go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say a little bit to add on at the end there, right, on what we were just talking about. So, as far as procrastination and stuff and the people that haven't had as great of an experience when they do this type of stuff, a lot of it has to do with money, with financial, right? And so I just wanted to touch on that for a second, right? Cornerstone, we offer, not only do we match and beat competitors' prices, even if you can find it, which is very unlikely, our prices are already set up where we're cheaper than any provider that's as big as us in the Valley and that does the same thing that we do. But even if you do, we're going to beat their price. And if you're signing up with Zach or you're with any law firm or any attorney and you let us know who they are, we're going to give you another 15% discount on the screening and the class prices. So a big part of it's money, right? by using us and using these things that I'm saying as far as like the attorney referral service, you're going to save a lot of money, right? So you can at least rest assured that you're going to be getting it the cheapest way and the most convenient way, right? And at the end of the day, this is going to cost you money regardless of who you go through to get these services completed. But it's online with us, self-paced. We make submissions directly to the court immediately, and it's the cheapest, So it's like, give us a call.
Love to hear that. And again, I know that we deal with this a lot with our clients. We do payment plans with our clients. We offer financing for our clients. Our clients love hearing that they get discounts from some of our referral partners. We don't get any kickbacks. We don't want kickbacks. We want you to have the cheapest, most affordable, best experience there is. Huge ways to get discounts. Again, some law firms, they don't care about you that much. They don't care that you have to pay this money. They don't take the time to work with other providers out in the community to say, hey, what can you do for our clients? So we love that about Cornerstone here, is that they actually care about you. They're a business. We get it. This is a court-ordered requirement, but at least there's some way and some benefit to you for this. And again, I know when I went and did all this in the past, things weren't this convenient. Things weren't online. Things weren't, virtual. I couldn't get discounts and all this. So let me tell you about my experience. So
let's hear it.
In my past, this was about 2010, 2011. So I was 18 years old. And I went to Arizona State University for undergrad. It was fantastic. I jumped right into college and I said, this is amazing. I had a full ride to ASU, top of my class in high school, and I immediately screwed it up. Because the first week of college, I went to a party with my roommates I had just met, and they were like, hey, come to this party with us. I was like, great, let's do it. And the party got shut down for underage drinking, and sure enough, I got in trouble because I was like, yes, I'm here. Sorry, I didn't want to do anything wrong. Underage drinking, criminal ticket. Well, as part of that violation in Tempe, they said, hey, you are now required to get yourself screened and to do the counseling. And I was like, okay, cool, whatever. Yeah, I'll just fit this in between all of my classes. I had to go to this separate building. I had to drive over there, had to meet with this person. Then the person was like, oh, where's the money? And I'm like, yeah, I've got cash right here. Haha, we don't take cash. We take only money orders.
No.
And I was like, okay, what's a money order? I've been adulting for all of 2.5 weeks.
Right.
And so then I go to a bank, and now I'm paying extra fees to get a money order. And then eventually I go there and I do this screening, and I'm like, yeah, look, I was at this party. There's, 50 people, and I had like 5 drinks, and they're like, alcoholic. And I'm like, no, that was normal. I was actually on the good end of people.
Right.
And they didn't understand that. I didn't understand how much I was disclosing as well, that I probably shouldn't have, but I am a very honest person back then. And it was like, no, the system's here to help. And ultimately I was assigned to go do classes, and I picked a location that was fairly close to me, which was nice. Went in person, and man, you would never know this place was a counseling place. There's no signs. It was in an area that I was like, oh, this is strange. I can donate blood right here. Am I here to donate blood? And again, I get into this place, and it's a meeting room, a nice little conference room. And there's a couple different conference rooms. And I remember my instructor. Well, first of all, every day you go in, you might be drug tested in person, and you never knew. And so you really were like, okay, make sure I'm not drinking, make sure there's no drugs in your system. Not that, it was really a concern, but it just, the fear of like, wow, I can automatically fail this if I ate, a poppy seed muffin, and it makes it look like I've got, opioids in my system. Adderall is very common these days. And people get in trouble for Adderall if you get drug tested. Anyways, I'm walking in there, and somebody's getting kicked out of the program because their urine came back positive for something. And I'm like,
Yeah.
Just this sweet little 18-year-old kid who's like, I got exposed to so many other problems when I went to this first day of counseling. It was insane. And again, that's not really the way that this is intended. Part of this, the saving of doing online classes, you get to deal with just your problem. But I go and I sit into this room, group counseling, group setting for this education. And man, the instructor goes over all these different things, and I am now learning more about drugs and alcohol than I had ever known. And I at first thought, I was like, wow, this is like, I'm like really on a scale of 1 to 10. I'm like a 1 compared to all these problems.
Right.
So that was a very funny, realization that I got. And I, again, didn't take this seriously. I was just like, hey, well, look, I'm pretty good and I'm not going to care about this. I'm just going to sit here and do my time kind of thing. So, and I actually had to do a whole weekend of classes like that. So it was awful. I had to go for 16 hours, all of Saturday, and then we got a little lunch break, and then all of Sunday had to come back and do this. So again, not that fun. It was annoying. I'm in a class with a dozen plus other people. Some of them are on the way high end of a problem scale. Some of them maybe like me, a little like, yeah, this is a one-time mistake kind of thing. And again, it's like not really the people you should be associating with either. So very much a like, wow, this is a crazy experience. I hope this never happens again for me. Well, fast forward, from, when school starts September to, I don't know, now Halloween. Of course, my friends say, hey, Zach, we've got a Halloween party. You want to go to your Halloween party? I'm like, yeah, let's go to a Halloween party. And that Halloween party gets busted and shut down. And now I'm charged again with underage drinking.
Oh, no.
So they hit me again. And I walked into it. I knew that I had taken it seriously the first time. And, a couple months had passed. I'd be like, yeah, I haven't been in trouble. This is good. I'll just explain that to the judge. And they didn't care. They were like, no, this is a problem. I'm like, look, I go to school every day. I've got straight Aces. And sure, like this 2 times I went to celebrate, I got in trouble. And they're like, yeah, but you might have a problem. Look how many times you've been in trouble in less than a year. And I'm like, I don't know. I got some friends that have been in trouble every weekend, it feels like. And other people's stories are like always a lie. Don't believe other people's stories when they're like, oh yeah, I got in trouble, but I just got out of it. Right. That's not how this works. So anyways, I now have to do these classes again. So again, I have to go. Now I know the routine. I'm like, let me go get this money order. Let me pay an extra $10 for this. I know the place. I'm going to schedule this. I'm going to show up. I'm a seasoned vet, and I'm meeting with these dozen plus other people. The teacher's like, oh, hey, Zach, welcome back. You're not supposed to come back. This is supposed to be one and done. And I was like, yeah, but here's the deal. I was at a party, got busted again, Halloween, the end. And again, I was like, okay, like, I'm on the lower end of this problem. This is really not for me. This is really for the other people who have serious problems. And again, I didn't take it serious, but I did my time and I got it done and over with. Right. Is that the end?
As far
for me?
I don't know. You tell me.
All right. It wasn't. It wasn't the end. Again, I took it a little serious this time and I was like, hey, I paid a fine, it's on my record and I did the classes and now it's done and over with. I don't have to go to court.
Yeah.
Well, fast forward now to my sophomore year, I, make the fatal mistake of getting a DUI. Okay. It's my one and only DUI and I'm, drinking with friends and the situation comes up. We have to go to another place. And I'm like, yeah, I'll drive. I'll take my motorcycle. It's not far we're going. And sure enough, I get a DUI. Long story short, I learned my lesson immediately. I was like, I am never doing anything wrong again. This is now serious. This isn't just, slap on the wrist, underage drinking. As I've mentioned, you've got a list of things that you've got to do with any DUI.
Right.
Well, sure enough, one of these things on this list was, hey, you have to do counseling classes. Okay. Do the screening, do the counseling. And again, pretty much by this point, within, this year and change, they knew me by name. My last name's Divalbus. It's not easy to pronounce. They're like, Mr. Divalbus, welcome back here. What'd you do this time? All joking aside, I mean, they were kind of like, hey, look, we can't give you 16 hours this time. We've got to bump you up to 36. We know that, these are small situations. You're in college. It's a party town back in the day and, you make mistakes. But look, this could very well become a serious problem. And I said, look, I get it. I am taking this so serious this time. You're never going to hear from me again. I'm not going to get in trouble and all that. And the hard part about this now, because it was not just one weekend, I had to do the weekend, get 16 hours done, and then I had to complete 2 hours every week. So every Wednesday night for 2 hours. By this point, I'd also lost my license. I had to pedal my bicycle to get to this hole in the wall facility, going through some fairly sketchy areas as a, 18, 19-year-old kid, going, I'm just here to do my counseling classes at night in the dark, after school, after my part-time job, had to take off work to do these sometimes, and then to meet in a room. And now this is where, again, I really experienced the real issues that people had. And people were here now in the weekly classes because they had other serious problems. Because like me, this wasn't their first run-in for this. I got to experience some issues where people had great success stories. Our counselor was a recovering lifetime addict who found sobriety and got to explain some depths that I had never heard people could get that low when it comes to addiction. Blew my mind, scared me straight a little bit. And then, of course, to see this success of hey, guess what? Now I've got a fingerprint clearance card. Now I can, teach people. Now I can give, here's what happened to me. Don't let it happen to you. It was fantastic. Again, a lot of my experiences are part of what led me into the law, if you haven't heard that. And this was another one. I was like, yeah, I should probably give back because I experienced this. I stumbled upon this. And, I had to go every day now, every week to the bank and get another money order to pay however much money it was every week. And then they had to keep a log. And then one day they were like, oh, we didn't get a payment. And then I thankfully had the receipt. And it was so awful.
Oh my
and then they wanted to violate me because I missed a payment and then say I didn't get credit for any of it. And then the judge is like, why isn't this done? And I'm like, well, I'm in college. I got other stuff to do. And it's so stressful and it's so hard. And again, those are the things that make you want to drink and be like, oh my God, I am so done with this. Let's go get a drink. And you really got to fight that urge. And that's what really they help teach you, and they help you understand, whether you think it's for you or not. There's some indicators that you pick up on. You're like, oh, the fact that this is stressful makes me want to drink. Red flag. Let's go find a way to deal with that other than drinking and drug use. So anyways, crazy story for me, doing these counseling classes 3 times, knowing all the providers basically by name, knowing their system and their processes, could have done their intake basically by memory, could have taught the class at this point.
Right.
As a well-to-do college, educated individual, top of my class, it was insane to think that I kept getting categorized as, sometimes a lowlife, sometimes a drug addict, when I'm sitting here going to these classes with people that I would sit here and go, yeah, man, I'm not like that person, but I really am. I'm sitting in the same room with them. I'm there as a court order requirement, just like they are. So what does the outside world think? What do my future employers think? There's so many things that I wasn't even thinking about then that I finished it all and was like, thankfully I got that done. They'd give us a little stone, kind of a success stone.
Got it.
To, keep with you. And 3 success stones, still have them to this day. Again, they're reminders. They're reminders of a difficult time that I went through in my life. And, especially at a time that I didn't think I had a problem, especially at a time that I thought, no, this is normal. I know tons of people who are getting in trouble and who have to do these classes and they get it done. And, it is the reality of what I thought everybody kind of experienced in college and with drinking. And, one day you kind of wake up and you're like, no, this is serious. Let's not do this anymore. And then I'll finish by how I really got into the law, because this experience, again, I lost my driver's license. MVD was like, hey, we're going to suspend this. And I was like, I'm going to do the screening and all that. They're like, great. And they're like, but, you got this many days, 15 days back in the day. And so I said, all right, well, wait a second. I want to put a hold on my license suspension because I've, got to move out of the dorms, whatever it was at that time. And so they said, great, you're good to keep driving, and here's a new driver's license for you. And I was like, fantastic, thank you. And again, about a month or so later, we're playing volleyball with my friends, completely sober, no more drinking. Again, I said, I'm very straight edge now, I'm going to take this serious. The officer pulls over my friend who's driving, and I'm sitting in the back seat, and says, hey, buddy, do you know why I pulled you over? He's like, no, I have no idea. And he's like, well, I pulled you over because you have expired tags. And he's like, oh, I'm so sorry, officer. The officer goes, all right, I need to see everyone's IDs. So, being 18 years old, we all hand our IDs over. We're doing nothing wrong. The officer comes back and says, Zach, do you know why I'm asking you to step out of the vehicle? And I go, no, why am I stepping out of the vehicle? He goes, great, you just handed the police officer false identification.
Right.
And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, well, Zach, is your license suspended? I said, yeah, look, I contacted MVD. They started my suspension because I finished moving and all that. And they go, yeah, well, you handed me false identification. And I go, no, I didn't. That's my license. That came from in the MVD. I'm not even driving. I'm sitting in the back seat. This officer goes, you know what? Tell it to the judge. I don't want to hear it. Here's your criminal citation for false identification. Right. And now I've been through the system. I know counseling classes. I know the court's rules. I know these judges. And I'm like, all right, I can do this. And I can explain that this was just a misunderstanding. This officer got it wrong. And part of why I think this officer did this is he pulled up my record and saw that I had underage drinking, DUI, and thought I just must have been up to no good. No more second chances for this kind of person. So I go to court. I talk to the prosecutor. And I'm like, hey, prosecutor, look, this is all just a big misunderstanding. And the prosecutor goes, look, I don't want to hear a word you have to say. Anything you say, I'm going to use it against you at a trial. And I'm like, but look, this is all a big misunderstanding. They say, look, if you want to tell your story, tell it to the judge.
Right.
And they signed me up for a trial. And I'm like, well, I guess that's how I'm going to tell it to the judge. So I show up, sophomore year of college now. I'm like, all right, I can do this. I'm all nervous. I wrote down some notes. And I'm like, Judge, I went to the MVD and got this license. Objection. I'm like, what did I do? The prosecutor's over here fighting everything I'm saying. And I'm like, the prosecutor wasn't there. I did this, And again, that's part of the problem. I wasn't a lawyer. I didn't know what objections were. I didn't know what hearsay was. And my story that I tried to tell, very choppy the way it came out. Ultimately, I did explain, look, hey, I had it at DUI. I had my license that was going to be suspended. They put it on hold. This lady gave me a brand new license. I later voluntarily put my suspension back into play and got pulled over in the backseat of a car. No idea why I'm in trouble. Judge bangs their gavel, guilty, false identification. And I'm just like so frustrated. I'm like, Judge, why? What did I do wrong here? And the judge says, well, Mr. Dibelbis, your driver's license says driver's license, not identification card. And I'm like, yeah, it does, but I don't know. That's what they gave me. And he goes, well, you should have asked them to give you an identification card. You should have had your passport. All this stuff that I'm like, no one ever told me that. You were probably my judge with my DUI case. You never told me I needed to get a identification card, not a driver's license. My public defender I wish I didn't have a public defender and had money to afford a private lawyer, would have then told me, hey, Zach, don't go and get a new license. Make sure you destroy that and not get in trouble again. Of course, I wasn't getting in trouble. My friend got pulled over for a reason that had nothing to do with me.
Right.
And again, I got a guilty conviction after trial representing myself for something I didn't even know was a crime. And really part of that was because they lumped me into this category of a repeat offender, into this category of this person's out there trying to break the law, trying to commit crimes, not taking it seriously. The officer could have been the bigger guy and been like, hey, son, look, I see you're not doing anything wrong. You're not allowed to have this. I'm going to throw it away. Go pay $6 tomorrow and get an identification card. It would have been like, yes, sir, like, absolutely. The prosecutor, who actually I found out after going to law school and doing this for years, is 100% allowed to hear my side of the story. And 100% is allowed to say, hey, I'm going to dismiss this case because, look, you weren't doing anything really wrong. You weren't, trying to get underage alcohol or, get into a club underage or trying to obviously do anything with false identification, the way the law's really meant.
Right.
We kind of got you on a loophole here. Nope, prosecutor could have done that, didn't. And the judge even also had full discretion, even after hearing my story, to say, look, this also isn't really what this law's meant for. Dismissed. This guy learned his lesson. He's going to go get an identification card. I learned the hard way.
Yeah.
And I said, look, I'm going to law school and I'm never letting somebody deal with this again as much as I can help them. Whether it's a friend, a family, a member, someone in the community, I'm going to go and learn this book of laws and make sure people know what's going on. And again,
super solid.
I mean, I hate that I have that kind of an origin story, but it serves our purpose here at Future First. You know, this is a law firm that we try and help as many first-time offenders as possible, so that way they don't get caught in the system. That way they don't have to do these counseling classes over and over. That way we can give them payment plans. We can make it easy and convenient for them. Make it so they don't get double license suspensions like I had to deal with, a triple counseling class like I had to deal with.
Right.
Go through this course system all over again, pay just hundreds, if not thousands of dollars that I didn't have. I mean, that's what our firm focuses on.
Yeah, and I think, you know, for me personally, if I put myself into a client's shoes and I hear that kind of a story, it's really reassuring to know that you've experienced not only, you knowing all the law and stuff like that now, but you've been on the other side of it. It's when it used to be way, way worse and so much more inconvenient and cost probably a lot more. And, probably with a company that didn't really educate you on what you should do and how you should do it and give you just a nice, clear, one path, like do all of these things and you'll be all right and we'll take care of you, right? You didn't have any of that. And so, you know what it used to be like, and it sounds like it was terrible. Right?
Yeah.
It sounds like it was not a fun experience. And then, you told a little story about how, like, basically what I got from the second part about your experience with the ID and the driver's license is that you didn't have somebody representing you that knew what they were talking about, right? And so, while I am in business development with, Cornerstone DUI services, Cornerstone Healing Center is a treatment center, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I myself, kind of like you mentioned in your first story, was on that other side of the spectrum of those guys in your class, right? I definitely struggled with substance abuse issues growing up. And so I have been in front of judges before in those circumstances where I was trying to advocate for myself and really didn't have legal representation that, was able to navigate these loopholes and these laws, because all the court sees is what's on paper. You know what I mean? You can tell them you're a straight A student, that you're in college, this was just a mistake. There we go again. You can tell them that you're in college, you're a straight A student, and this was just a mistake, right? But what the judge and the prosecution, I mean, in my experience dealing with the courts in the past for other things because of my substance abuse, right? They just see what's on the paper.
Mm-hmm.
They see what's in your history, right? And so,
and that's how they judge you. You're just a number.
You're just a number and you're on paper. So the biggest takeaway that I got from your story and kind of, being vulnerable with my stuff and talking about my experience is that legal representation and having someone that can really take care of this stuff for you is super important, regardless of what attorney you go with. I'd say go with Zach for DUIs, but, I think it's just very, very important. And that was my experience, as well with like my little story time, I guess you could say.
Absolutely. Thank you, Nico. Appreciate your time. Appreciate your story.
Yeah.
Again, please follow us if you aren't already. Like anything we do, share this with friends, family, anybody you think that might have any value from this.
Mm-hmm.
Again, we help a ton of people here in the Phoenix area. Nico and Cornerstone, they're absolutely there for you. Please reach out directly to them.
Yeah.
We hope you guys got some value from this, and please stay safe out there.
Yeah. Thanks for coming out, Zach. Have a nice day.
Thank you.